There's been two big moves for Bitcoin that's making headlines this week. Microsoft shareholders may soon vote on adding Bitcoin to the company's investment portfolio, a sign of growing corporate interest. Meanwhile, Pennsylvania's new Bitcoin rights bill sets clear protections for Bitcoin users, signaling state's proactive stance in crypto regulation. Now stick around to see how these developments could actually shape Bitcoin's future. According to this article, you can see the headline is quite crystal clear. It says that indeed, Microsoft shareholder are actually proposing the actual firm to look into investing Bitcoin as part of its balance sheet. Now, the Microsoft board is recommending the contrary, to actually vote against it, right? Arguing that they already evaluate a wide range of investable assets, including Bitcoin. Now, as you can see here, as I just said, the Microsoft shareholders are set to vote in December on whether the tech giant should publicly assess adding Bitcoin to its balance sheet. A filing with the United States Securities Regulator reveals. This is quite pivotal because irrespective of what any corporate board thinks about the type of assets they should consider, including to its corporate balance sheets, if the majority of the shareholders, which are really matters for any thriving business, because their vote counts, put the money where their mouth is, not the board. The board are just a bunch of people that actually provide recommendations in corporations. But at the end of the day, it's the shareholders that drive the value for these enterprises. So what they claim is what in reality is going to happen eventually, right? Even though there are two contrasting positions. So the board is recommending against adding Bitcoin to the Microsoft corporate balance sheet, where the shareholders of the company are advocating the opposite. They are really keen enthusiasts, truly understands the value of Bitcoin, its scarcity, its finality, its store of value, and for those reasons, amongst many other properties of Bitcoin, going through the horse carriage ride into the enterprise to get company to incorporate into the balance sheet. I think that's what's going to be happening, right? There's going to be that push for Microsoft to make sense and take heed of the Microsoft playbook, which kudos to Michael Saylor and the team have done a tremendous job to put the money where the mouth is, continue to buy into to Bitcoin through the corporate debt, where they're issuing debt to buy more Bitcoin into its balance sheet. So Microsoft, if they're considering this, who knows, right? So this is going to open up the Pandora box, certainly, for other S&P 500 major companies to do the same thing, to start acknowledging in the corporate board meetings, but mainly impulsed by the shareholders. If they are on the side of market strategy, which is for these companies to include Bitcoin into their corporate balance sheet, eventually this is what's going to happen at a gradual pace. And this tremendous impulse from Microsoft to consider it, being one of the largest companies in the world, this is tremendous breaking news yet again for incorporating and institutionally adopting Bitcoin as a leading digital capital or a digital asset for any enterprise, institutions, family, government, and so on. Now, I'd like to move on to this second part of the news, which I think is key, right? And this is looking more at the thesis of nation-state adoption. So in the case of the United States, the Pennsylvania House just this Wednesday, in fact, just passed an interesting bipartisan bill to bring some more regulatory clarity on how the state managing digital assets for its citizens. So you can see here, I've just highlighted the paragraph that indeed it says on Wednesday, the Pennsylvania House of Representatives have just passed a bill that protects residents' rights to self-custody digital assets, right, all cryptos, to ensure their ability to use Bitcoin as a payment and provides explicit guidelines around taxing Bitcoin transactions. So if you just home into the makeup of the 176, because I think this is an interesting statistic for the eventual presidential election that's coming to an end in, I think, the 5th or the 6th of November. Out of the 176 votes that have voted on favour for this bill, 76 were Democrats and 100 were Republican members. So I think if you read between the lines, this is again evidence enough that maybe the US citizens should certainly take heed that maybe the Republican, at this moment in time at least, the way I perceive this is clearly that the Republican are more crypto, more Bitcoin friendly, if you compare it with the Democrats, even though now it's been recognized as a bipartisan issue during the presidential election. So this is tremendous good news that given the infamous property rights that have existed in the actual Constitution of the United States, the state of Pennsylvania in enacting a Bitcoin rights as a bill, as they're calling it, for digital assets, custodian or self-custodianship, including Bitcoin for its citizens in the state of Pennsylvania. This is going to indeed have a ripple effect for the rest of the states in the country at some point, and also finally have that final repercussion into the federal level to do the same, right? So it's a bottom-up approach, which is in fact in the same ethos lines of how Bitcoin came about, right? It's more of a people asset rather than the establishment asset top down. Going to have certainly a knock-off effect at some point quite shortly on the price of Bitcoin. I just want to conclude this episode on the actual influx of the new net inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs. You can see that if you go far back, and I've actually explained this in an earlier video, if you go far back as the 11th, so it's 2 weeks today, this is where we've started out this inevitable streak of all-time high net new inflows. So you can see from the 11th there's been 253, you've got $500 million on the next day. If you go all the way down, we've got 9 consecutive days, with the exception of the 22nd, where there's been a net outflow. The rest have been net new inflows, and it's record level net new inflows, around 2.3 billion net new inflow money into those ETFs, which also explains why we are seeing now, we are currently in the present levels of $67.8 thousand per coin. The gold candle effect is going to happen quite shortly, and even more so once we see the back of this US president election. This is going to actually skyrocket into the moon, right? So I can't emphasize enough, for those who don't have even a small allocation of Bitcoin, they should certainly use this as a golden opportunity to allocate some in line with their risk appetite, because certainly when you think about your future legacy, your children, your grandchildren, they're not going to have this similar opportunity that we have now to accumulate Bitcoin at a discount. Bear in mind that there is still 1.5 million Bitcoin left to be mined out of the 21 million. People are purchasing Bitcoins. They're recognizing the value of acquiring Bitcoin into their portfolio, even if there's a small allocation. And I insist, this is a golden opportunity to do the right thing, to allocate some for your portfolio for that generational wealth ambition that we all have, which is to use it as a store of value for our future legacy needs. So hopefully you found this video interesting. If you have, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and indeed share this video. So until next time.